for your rights, and their white brethren did not like it. So now stop it. Don't go all overboard. Oh, look at, they died for us. Stop it. Can a few deaths of well-meaning white people compare with the slaves that died? With the slaves that jumped overboard during the Atlantic Passage? So why would you compare how big your death rate is and how small their death rate has been for your benefit, that now you feel obligated? But they don't show any obligation to us. We just got to deal with facts. All right. So when the slave states remained in rebellion against the United States, on January 1st, 1963, President Abraham Lincoln, 1863, President Lincoln emancipated the slaves in the South. That's right. And this emancipation didn't go to the slaves in the North. That's right. He wanted to get at the South. All right, now look. This fight between the North and the South hasn't stopped, you know. I'm going to point it out to you. If you look at the states that voted for Barack Obama and the states that voted against him, you have almost the same configuration of those that seceded from the Union. Yes, our president can say there are no red states or no blue states. There's only the United States of America. But America is only united when it comes to putting us in the place that they desired for us. Other than that, there is no unity even among them. So now comes the amendments, the Reconstruction Amendments. All right, you Negroes, you're free now. We are offering you 40 acres and a mule. You never got the 40 acres and you became the mule. I think that's a democratic symbol, isn't it? Lord have mercy. Now look, here's the 13th Amendment. After the Emancipation Proclamation was enacted, the South didn't want nothing to do with that. It said slavery was abolished and involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. Other than that, no slavery shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Now, these are words. See, and if you don't study English, even though it's not our native language, but it's all we got. So it would seem to me that it is important to master the language. Clarence Darrow was a great lawyer. He never lost a case because he was a master of the English language. The same way you can take the various shades of meaning of one word, the prosecutor can take one shade that fits his case, and the defense attorney can take another meaning that fits his desire to free his client. So the language is considered a bastard language because it's derived from Latin, Greek, and you have mixtures of other languages in English. So that's what made Malcolm X, though he only went to the 8th grade, able to defeat any lawyer coming out of Harvard in debate because he understood words. And words can put you in a box, and words can free you from a box. It's just knowing how to use words to fulfill your aim and your objective. Now look at this. Amendment 13 was ratified December 6, 1865. But the South didn't like that at all. So what happened? Well, we had to get Amendment 14 because you were free, but you were not yet a citizen. Now, you notice today when immigrants come, they have to study certain things. They have to be willing, desirous of becoming a citizen. And nobody asked you no questions. It was as though you were not intelligent enough to make a sincere, concrete decision as to whether you wanted to be a citizen. They just conferred it on you. But have you gotten the rights, privileges of a citizen? So if you don't have it, you have to question now whether in fact you're really what you think you are. Well, of course we are, because we have our first black president. What does that really mean? What does that really mean? Our brother was selected before he was elected. And you didn't select him. So he's more attuned to, committed to, hard working for those who selected him. You were not in the room when wise people sit down and talk about the time. See, they know that this is the time that you should go free completely. So the only way they can make you believe that this so-called democracy is for you, bring one of your brothers and make him a president. Well, certainly we were happy. I went out, I voted for my brother. But the gays got things. Same-sex marriage group got something. Hispanics are going to get something. What have you gotten? See, you got the joy pill. It's a placebo. It ain't got no juice to it. It's a placebo. Just give them something to make them feel good. You know how it is when you got a baby and it's screaming? You put a pacifier in the mouth. But a pacifier don't give it no nourishment. It just pacifying. They suck it and suck it and suck it and get quiet sucking it. And then they say, oh, I ain't getting the real thing. And when you realize that you've just been pacified, then you want to unite to go after the real thing. So the 14th Amendment said, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Now, I want you to think with me, because if these amendments were passed between 1865 and 1870, but in 1965, you're marching on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. What are you marching for? You're marching for what they gave you 100 years earlier, but they had not the will to enforce what they gave you. Now look, today they're saying, listen, we've got to fix these people because they're free now. They have the right to vote. They went around and they fought us for the right to vote. We killed a lot of them, but they finally got the right. But here's the problem. You look at demographics. The birth rate of whites is one white born when one white dies. That means their birth rate is declining, while the black and the brown birth rate is continuing to rise. So they know that in a few years, America is not going to be an all-white country. Power will then rest in the hands of the majority, and if the black and the brown come together in unity, then your numbers will make you in a position with your right to vote, to put your people in the Senate, your people in the governor's mansions, your people in the seat of mayors, your people in state legislatures, your people in the Senate and in the Congress, your people on the Supreme Court. Do you think white supremacy wants to abide your growth into that kind of power? No. Well, let's think together. Let's think. Look how many people are in prison today. 2.3 million Americans, black, brown, and poor white, are in prison. Did you know that they're working in prison for some of the top 500 corporations in America? In prison, they're trained to work for 23 cents an hour in Georgia, Mr. Brooks, where you are. 54 to 58,000 inmates are working for 23 cents an hour. But they're working for Boeing, they're working for Lockheed, they're working for Motorola, they're making night goggles, they're doing sophisticated labor, yet many of them never graduated from high school. They dropped out, but that didn't mean they were unintelligent. Zuckerberg dropped out, but he's a billionaire today. Bill Gates didn't finish, right? So it don't mean that you got to go to school in order to be a dumber Negro. Come on, doctor. I'm not downing education. We need it. But we need the right kind of education that will make us a free, independent, and industrious people. Well, now they started riding on us. After the 13th Amendment, they decided put us back on the plantation. That's when they came up with black codes. Let me read a few of those codes for you. See if they still exist today. Boy, this is tough. I got a good research team, and they line me up with these facts. And, you know, all you got to do is line me up with them. I'll preach them. Because after you know the facts, sometimes you might be scared to tell them because it ain't the lining up that you get in trouble for. It's standing up. Now, look at this. Blacks could not own firearms. Any slave caught with a firearm, it was rough. And if you notice today, if they stop and frisk and you got a gun, that might be an excuse to end your life. Because blacks with guns tend to be dangerous. But in this era of time, blacks with guns are dangerous to themselves. So we don't make the guns, they flow into the black community. We don't go after the drugs, they flow into the black community. So after these black codes were implemented, then they went back to Congress and they passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866. That was to combat the black codes. And every time they made an amendment, under that amendment, I got to get the right words, they said that Congress had the authority to make other legislation. So every time they passed an amendment that favored you, the whites in the South and some in the North rebelled. And there was no enforcement. The government wasn't enforcing the amendments. No. So the South rose. But check this out.
Say it, Minister.
After the war was over, federal troops were in the South to protect us from the whites in the South who were upset that we thought we were free. In 12 years, or 14 years, from 1863 to 1877, that was the period of Reconstruction where black folk, oh man, built about 60 towns in America, 60. We had money in the Freedmen's Bank. We were in the Senate. We were in the Congress, yes. And when they looked at the strides that we were making 12 to 14 years after emancipation, some white folks said, this is just too much. So in 1876, there was an election between James Tilden and Rutherford B. Hayes. The election was so close, they didn't know who was going to be president. So like it is with most white folks when they run into a problem with us, they meet to discuss what to do. So they met in the Wormley Hotel in Washington, D.C. And check this out. They decided if Hayes would be made president, they would relieve the South of all federal troops that were sent there to guard your rights. That's called the Great Betrayal and Compromise of 1877. Once they pulled the federal troops out, then all of this evil night riders, Ku Klux Klan, White Citizens Council, just lynching, killing black people, destroying the towns that they had built. Because they did not want you free, they wanted you back on the plantation, but this time as a sharecropper. I'm almost finished. So when they started killing us like that, by 1870, the 15th Amendment was signed, giving us the right to vote. Now, every time an amendment was signed, there's a section. Section 2.
Go ahead.
It said the Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation.
Section 2. That's always
See,
key.
so you always got to go back now because the people are rebelling against what the federal government is doing to advance a cause to make you a citizen. But has it happened? Oh, I know you think it has. I know. When you go shopping in downtown Montgomery, I don't know what the favorite store is, but do they have mannequins in the window?
Yeah.
They do? So when you're window shopping, sisters, you look at the mannequin. Oh, I like that. Let me go in the store and see if I could try that on, because I want to buy that. Well, that's what black elected officials, let me just be very frank.
Say it.
You just mannequins
Say it.
in the window of democracy to sell your people on something that they know will not work. It don't work for them. As hard as they labor, it don't work for you. So why would you then lead our people into something that's not working for you? And if it's not working for the masses, how could it be working for you unless you sold the masses out when you got elected?
Say it. Say it. Go ahead. Take your time. Preach.
So now, by 1870, the 15th Amendment was passed. It was ratified February the 3rd, 1870. But they have this Section 2. The Congress shall have power to enforce this by appropriate legislation. No enforcement. So this is 2013. See? So when we walked across the Edmund Pettus Bridge and they beat us down, then Lyndon Johnson went to Section 2 and gave what? Civil rights legislation. That's in the Voting Rights Act. Then he gives you a civil right. But you had it when the 15th Amendment was signed. You had that right. But the right was never enforced. That's what I'm coming to.
Come on, bring it in.
The Voting Rights Bill
Fix it.
of 1965
That's it.
has 6 parts to it.
That's right. Oh, you did your work.
It is in the 5th part that there's an enforcement provision.
Go ahead. That's right.
But they won't enforce it unless they go right back and make some more legislation. Boy, this is a pitiful. See, you like a dog chasing your tail. And sometimes you can smell where the tail leads you, but you never can bite it. Blacks couldn't enter the city unless they had an employment contract. And if you did not have a job, you could be arrested for vagrancy. Right now, you can't stand on corners and just hang out. Police will ride up, hey, what are you doing? All right, clear this corner. And if you don't move fast enough, you get a little stimulus. The slave codes are still in existence. You are fighting internally for something that if they don't have the will to enforce it and give it to you, you'll keep on fighting, passing on to every generation the legacy of the futility of your foolishness. You believe in this. This is losing faith in itself. These people can't make jobs for you with millions of their own people unemployed. $17 trillion in debt. And then when you add to that Social Security and entitlements, it's up to 60 to 70 trillion dollars. They don't have that kind of money. Ask Mr. Friedman, who's printing now all the dollars that are being put in circulation, $40 billion a month. And if you really want to destroy a government, all you got to do is make their money counterfeit and then spread it, and every dollar that's in circulation is weakened by the counterfeit dollars that are put in. And right now it's legal for them to give counterfeit dollars. So you know, it's just sad. And this is why they don't want me to come and talk to you. They want to make you believe that I hate them. That's wrong. I don't hate Jewish people. I admire them. I think they are very intelligent, very wise, very progressive, very influential. I just don't like the way they misuse their power. And I have a right to say that without being labeled anti-Semitic when I have done nothing to stop a Jewish person from getting an education, setting up a business, or doing whatever a Jewish person desires to do. That shoe is on white folks' feet where you are concerned. They stop you from making progress. Now let me read my brother Dr. King. Oh, this man is something. He said, if the soul is left in darkness, sins will be committed. He was quoting Victor Hugo. The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but he who causes the darkness. The policymakers, Dr. King writes, of the white society have caused the darkness. They created discrimination. This is Dr. King. Did Louis Farrakhan create discrimination?
No, sir.
No. They created slums. Did Louis Farrakhan do that? Was he ever accused of being a slum landlord? No. They perpetuate unemployment, ignorance, and poverty. I'm trying to end ignorance and unite our dollars that we may pool our dollars into a national treasury that would allow us to do something for ourselves instead of laying around these places begging them. You give them the thought that they are superior by you acting like a little puppy dog around his foot, and he kicks you away and you come back like the dog lolling out your tongue for a little more. And so the reason why we have to fight for the amendment and for the civil rights legislation that gives government the right to enforce your right to vote is because the majority of white people will slip right on back to the way things were because they're not happy with the rise of our people in America. I can't say that of all, but those in power. I'll close with this from Dr. King. What a great teacher. You didn't think that Dr. King was hitting them hard like this. Oh, and by the way, did you know that they called Dr. King an anti-Semite too? A communist, a hater? So you need to know that the charge anti-Semitic is a trick. It's used to bring people in line. So as long as you believe that about me, then Mr. Friedman can send out e-text to 650 so-called leaders and tell you don't go near Farrakhan. He has a disease. You don't want to catch it. His disease is knowledge. His disease is wisdom. His disease is truth. And if you catch that disease, you'll go free. And you won't be laying around like Lazarus at the rich man's table begging for the crumbs that fall from his table. That rich man was so hateful he sent the dogs out. Who let the dogs out? And the dogs came and saw his condition with all these sores and began licking his sores. I close with this. I had a beautiful talk with some rabbis. They came to my home for dinner. I went to theirs. This is true. It was the Rabbi Shalman, who was the dean of rabbis in Chicago and Rabbi Marx. They were offended by my words. I never said Hitler was a great man. I described an adjective with an adverb. You that study English grammar, you know you can do that. So I said he was wickedly great. Now, I don't make any movies on Hitler.
Go ahead.
Mr. Friedman's people makes those movies. They keep him alive and the wickedness that he did to the Jewish people because they know they never want to see that happen again. I'm with you, members of the Jewish community. I never want to see anything rise, anyone rise, that would put Jewish people, men, women, and children, in ovens for their faith. However, I'm calling on you to change your ways because you cannot tell us you're our friend and then don't lead us the way you were led. See, Jewish people know the value of money. They're very intelligent. They know the value of land. They know the value of vineyards, and they know the value of slaves and peasants that will work that land. Now, they might not like what I'm saying, but it is true. And so wherever they are, you find them owning real estate. You find them highly learned. In fact, though they're less than 2% of the American people, they're 20 to 30% of those in law and medicine. They rule those disciplines. So here you are. You've got 9 justices in the Supreme Court. 3 are Jewish. They're less than 2% of the population. See, they are powerful. They are influential. But God wants to break their hold on you. Why is that? You are the children of Israel. The real children of Israel that have been in bondage for 400 years in a strange land among strange people. See, you're the children of Israel. Israel represents the Caucasian people. They all are under that name in the Bible. But you are the children of Israel. Of here is a possessive a possessive preposition. You belong to them. That's why they talk to you like that. See, they write you a letter like you a boy. And if you pass, they'll tell you, look, boy. Look, boy. Get in your place.
Go ahead.
And what place is that? The president spoke on the ills of gambling.
Say it.
I know Mr. Attorney General has taken away your casinos
That's right. Say it. That's right. He has.
and put 10,000, 20,000
Out of work.
people out of work.
That's right.
That could be a blessing in disguise. Because when you don't have a job, you got to start thinking,
There you go.
how am I going to make it tomorrow? See, and you know you can't do it by yourself. It's going to take the unity of
Yeah,
all of us
together.
to create a solution
There you go.
to our problems.
Now you talk.
So it's not about hate.
That's right.
So help me, Allah. I thank Allah for them.
Yes.
They have set an example of how people work together for the common good. You should do the same. We should do the same. So I thank you
We thank
for
you.
allowing me this
We
privilege.
thank you.
I close saying we must fight
We must fight.
for the Section 5 in the voting rights legislation because they don't have the will to allow you to continue to vote uncontested. You understand me?
We understand you.
So if we don't fight, we can't win. Yes, brother.
Minister, does your appearance signal the start of a new movement? If not, what does your appearance here mean?
Yes.
We're not having it.
No, that's
He's
all right.
with us. He's with
I
us.
know him.
Yeah, he's with us.
Okay, well, just let me handle this.
Yeah. We plant that question. That's a good one.
That is a great question.
Yeah.
I believe
Yes.
that my brother, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., only lived to be 39.
Years old.
He didn't reach the goal that he was aiming for. This is not the America that he wanted to see, a black president with 46 million people in poverty. He died reaching for a goal, but he told Harry Belafonte, I fear that I'm integrating my people into a burning house. So what are you saying, Dr. King? I'm disturbed now. I've done all this work, but I see the house coming down. Malcolm X died at 39, was assassinated. Malcolm was reaching for something. He outgrew the narrow nationalism of the Nation of Islam at that time, and he found in universal Islam not only a Pan-Africanist idea, but he found that Islam is a religion not for some, but for all of humanity. He was impatient. We were going there. But you never, ever, when you're civilizing a people, let the cage door open before you've tested whether they'll go back into savagery or whether they will go forward into civilization. And the moment the cage door was open, many of us didn't go forward. We went backward into lives of crime and violence and drugs and guns, etc. But some of the Muslims, under Imam Warithuddin Muhammad, they studied their Quran. They studied Arabic. They know that side of Islam. But they all